Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. I'm Michael Introvertol, the Marketing Manager for Solution Systems Inc. Today we have customers and others attending this webinar, so just a bit about Solution Systems before we begin. We are located in Rolling Meadows, Illinois, and we have been in business for 35 years providing software, IT infrastructure, and web development to organizations in the Chicagoland area, as well as Wisconsin, Indiana, and the Midwest region. We are a Gold Certified Microsoft partner. We sell, implement, and support an ERP software called Microsoft Dynamics NAV. NAV is a business accounting software that is geared toward manufacturers, distributors, and service companies. We also sell, implement, and support CRM as well as outsource IT services to our customers. Today we are very fortunate to have Rick Baxter with us from Cost Control Software, and he will be conducting this overview. So I'm going to pass it over to him so we can get started with that.
Welcome. I've got the recorder started. Looks like, yep, there it's going. So again, my name is Rick Baxter, Cost Control Software, coming to you live today. It's Wednesday, November the 13th, 2013, and we're going to be looking at job cost manufacturing versus standard cost manufacturing. And it's not really versus, it's which one is right for you as we kind of go through this. I believe Katie sent this document to you already, so you should have a copy of this as well. The duration today should be about 60 minutes, maybe 70 minutes, somewhere in that range, depending on how long-winded I get during the session and what kind of questions you have along the way, because I will make this fairly interactive. And you'll be able to kind of, you'll see how we respond as we get a little further. I'll ask a couple polls as we go. Okay, so the first thing here on your study guide, so I'm on page 2 of your guide, it's not an issue of which is better, okay? It's an issue of which is right for your business. So I'm going to show you two very different systems. You see I've got the NAV software running here in the background. I'm going to go there in just a minute. And we're going to kind of look at how the screens will be shown. I'm going to show really two simultaneously, side by side, so we can do a little comparison as we go through this. And welcome to Telco. Glad to have you here from Western. And so what we're going to be looking at is, first of all, job cost manufacturing. That's going to be on the left side. And I'm going to be using Job Manager, which is an add-on for NAV jobs. And I'm going to show you how it works compared for companies that provide a service or that make a product. On the right side of your screen over here, we're going to be taking a look at standard cost manufacturing, and I'll be using an add-on called Manufacturing Plus. And it works for companies that make a product. It's really built on top of the NAV manufacturing software. My goal today, just so you know, is I really want to help you identify which one is right for you. Again, it's not which is better, it's which one is right for your business. And I'm going to help you understand some of the costs of gathering data as you use the software. So that's kind of my mission today. I'm going to start with a very simple comparison. Number one here is a comparison of the role centers. So I want to be able to compare the two role centers and see if there is much difference between the two role centers, between job costing kind of role center and a manufacturing role center. Let me move this study guide out of the way just momentarily. We'll be back there in a minute. And just so you know, I've got the screens laid out. Here on the left side is our job system. So let's go to the role center. So I click on role center. So this is my job manager role center. So that's hopefully you've seen 2013 by now. Maybe some of you are actually using the 2013 or thinking about upgrading to the NAV 2013 with the stacks, the new charting capability, organization of the menus and the ribbons, all of this very nice improvements that they have provided in the 2013 release. On the right side, and I've brought it just a little bit lower so it's easy for you to kind of see the difference. Let me go back to its role center. And I want to compare the two and see if we see any major differences. So on this role center, which is our manufacturing role center, dealing with production orders, release production orders, firm plan production orders instead of jobs. You see over here I've got jobs in the job system. And so in manufacturing, you're dealing with a production order versus a job. So there's the first big difference right there. It's pretty obvious that one is related to the job and job costing, and the other is production and production orders. The rest of the screen, quite frankly, with the ribbon, you design the ribbon the way you want it. That's all user personalization. We provide it. If you purchase the manufacturing software, we lay it out. In fact, the demo I'm going to be doing today is using what's called Manufacturing Plus. So on the right side, I've got my Manufacturing Plus Role Center with its charts and graphs and special lookups and drill downs, my items, my production orders, that type of thing is all in the manufacturing side. On the left side is our Job Manager software, which is to enhance the use for job costing type of companies. My first comment to you is there's not much difference between these two role centers, quite frankly. At least I don't think, personally, I don't think there is. You still have menus. You still have the drill down, sales, purchases, that kind of thing, the ability to define your own charts. These are all user defined, by the way. This is just some samples that I've thrown up on the screen to make it so that you understand the adaptability of the software and the ability to have in the manufacturing the same thing with charts added to your role center as well. So quite frankly, on number 1 here on our study guide, the differences are really not very much as far as the layout of the screens. Where you're going to start to see differences is where we're going next, which is by comparing the job list to the production order list. We're going to kind of look at the two lists and maybe the two cards as well, and we'll look at the jobs, which are typically for a customer. So when you're doing a job, quote a job in your business, you'll have to think what a job would be, and versus a production order, which is more for making inventory, putting it into the stock, and then you ship an invoice out of that stock inventory. Jobs, by the way, so those of you that may not be familiar, jobs can be either for service, which is the out-of-the-box solution, or for production. So if you are actually posting finished goods into inventory so that you can ship in product, we've enhanced the job system. That's what cost control software does, is we add functionality to the nav software, which you'll see here as we go along today. And but production orders are only really for items. So it's to make a finished good item or a subassembly, whereas a job can be to provide a service. In fact, probably 80% of our customers use jobs more in the light of a service type of business. Jobs you'll see are some cost categories. In fact, I think I'm going to just jump into the screen. We'll talk about the cost categories and the revenue on a job. And jobs are typically longer in duration with that projected cost at completion. So I want to show you some of these things as we go along. So let's first take a look at the list. So I'm going to drill down. So I'm going to go into my release production orders. I can drill right from here. I could also get to them from the menu choice on the left side. I like to drill right through that stack. It kind of, helps you visualize on screen what's going on. So this is my list of production orders. I've got quite a few samples, as you see, with an FG finished good number 808. That's an item that we produce quite a bit. And then on the left side, let's take a look at its job list. So I'm going to drill down through the stack of jobs, 52 open jobs. And now this list is a little different, okay? Now there's some things that are the same. On this side, I do have a chart here as well. I do have job estimates and job actual cost. I have the same kind of thing over here. You'll notice the expected cost. It's called expected cost instead of estimated cost, but it's expected cost, same kind of thing, for different categories of costs within manufacturing. In the jobs, let's just land on one of these jobs. I know this job's got some activity on it. Notice the difference here. So for a job, I actually have a place for revenue. So there's a place here where it actually shows revenue, whereas over in the manufacturing side, there is no association of revenue to a job. Okay, so that's one difference right there. So if you're trying to calculate profitability of a job, then you really want to be looking at the job costing solution, and potentially we hope you'll look at the the job manager from cost control software as well. Certainly you can, if you're an end user on the call, you can always contact your NAV reseller and ask them to get you more information on it. That's what we'll provide. And you can always just contact me here direct as well. And I'll show you at the end a couple ways to get more information about both of these products. So revenue is a big factor here. Notice too, let me move this up a little bit. And by the way, I'm on this job number right here. So I'm on 1002-01. These dash numbers, by the way, when you see these dash numbers, these indicate sub-jobs. So many of our customers wanted to be able to actually have a kind of a multiple jobs grouped together to make a project. So in this case, these 4 jobs fall underneath the master job, which is this one, 1002. And so when I'm looking at its statistics, then I'm seeing the overall estimates, the overall actual cost of the master job. When I click on an individual sub-job, I'm seeing the cost of that revenue and cost of that one job. Now compare that to the manufacturing side, you'll see a list of jobs. That's all it is, the list of production orders. I guess they call them production orders. So got to be careful. Sometimes I will tell you I switch back and forth with terminology. I get them wrong. But it's this is our production order side versus our list of jobs. So they're both a list, and they both have statistics. So very little difference there, other than you'll notice in expected costs we have material cost, capacity cost, which is labor, and subcontract cost. And then a couple others for overhead and then total cost. Where over on the job side, look at this. On the job side, we have the shop labor cost, field labor cost, machine cost, expense cost, material cost, outside processing, overhead, transportation. So you have more categories of cost and how you separate your cost on the job side than you do on the manufacturing production order. So there's a little difference right there, and that's kind of the intent here. Is again, I just want to kind of compare and contrast these two products so that you understand the differences, and hopefully it'll help you decide which one is the better solution for you. Now, I'm hoping you're not expecting to be trained on how to use NAV manufacturing or how to use the job system. This is a webinar to kind of explain the differences between the two, although you will get some training along the way as we go. Okay, now let me make sure I don't forget anything here. So jobs can be either service or production. Let me point that out in the software. Let's go a little deeper here. So I'm going to open up on the this is on the production side. So I'm going to open up what's called the card. So many of you hopefully are familiar with a production order card. So this is the card where for this finished good, number 808, we're making 100 in this sample. Here's the due date. Here's the line that we're producing, the bill of material, and the routing that's being used, the start dates. And of course you have quick access to the routing. From here I can drill right down into the routing, just press escape and go back, or if I want to see the components that are in that, I can drill down, in this case only 2, but you get the idea. This could be 200 list of components in that production order. Now you still have the expected cost and the actual cost here on the right side. So this is to produce a finished good, because you'll use the production journal to actually post that finished good. You might even make partial postings. You've got 100 that you're producing. You might make 5 and then another 5 and another 5. And there's a place where you actually, in fact, right in here, you go in and actually do the postings of those finished goods. Now I'm going to move this over just a little bit here to the right, and I want to go into the job side and compare, see if I can, the screens are really hard to do here, and I'm sorry if it gets a little bit cluttered on my screen. This is a job card. So now we're looking at a job, and this job, in fact, is for a conveyor. The layout of the screen is a little different, but the concepts are almost identical. So this is to produce, actually this is a resource job. So this is a service type job, although it could be an item job. So there's an option here to set the job up to be either an item or a resource, whereas in the production system it's really just to make the item or the subassembly. So in this case, it's to provide this service, which is probably a custom designed material handling system, as you see here in the description. And it's going to have its router, which we do with what we call our task details. So let me show you the example here. Going a little further, this is like a router for jobs. And you'll notice that I probably have more categories than what you're accustomed to. I got to take a quick drink of water. Sound didn't go off. I just had to pause. Okay, so a little more detail. So those customers that are using the job system typically want more detail in their costing analysis. So they are going to cost by design, by development work, CAD work, by material cost, and you can see them out here to the right. The scheduled cost and the actual usage cost is shown now down at the user-defined level of detail. So this is showing, see, for cutting or welding or painting or whatever kind of work you might be doing, or site work. Here's site work, demolition, setup. This is a way a typical job coster will set up a series of codes. These aren't necessarily the codes that you will use in your business. You'll come up with your own list, and we certainly do a lot of strategy sessions with our customers. They'll call and say, Rick, I want to discuss with you how we might best use this set of codes. And we kind of brainstorm the configurations so that the system generates the reporting on the back end that the end user really wants to get. Okay, so this is the task list. It's called task list, job-specific task list with the details. On the job side, let me just kind of, again, I want to try and compare and contrast as we go along. So here on the right side is a production order, and if I look at what they call a routing, it's sort of similar. Okay, machining, assembly, welding, painting, packaging. These tend to be very sequential. They're going to have dates assigned to them. The other system has dates assigned to them as well. Has output, setup time, run time, all of that. Both systems have almost identical configurations there. So similar, but a little different. And we'll, at the end, we'll really talk about some of the major differences between the two systems as we when we wrap it up here at the end. Okay, so let's see if I mentioned all these things. 9 cost categories or more cost categories for the job system, 4 cost categories only for the NAV manufacturing. Revenue on a job. This is a really big one right here. Did you notice on the job side, when you're looking at, let me go back, when you're on the job up here at the top, there is revenue. And so in fact, let me bring up one more screen here that'll help clarify this revenue. And the importance of revenue for job costing is immense. And it really shows nicely here on the statistic window. So let me bring that up. This may be the first time you've seen this. This is a really nice statistic window. I don't know if I've got a job that's got some good samples. Yeah. Okay, so notice what this has. So here is current estimate. So let me call your attention to this column right here, current estimate. It's got the revenue. It's got the cost information broken out into these cost categories. Okay, these different cost categories. This is kind of a summary category versus the user-defined task. Okay, so it's a different way to look at it. And then it totals it up. And the difference, if you think about it, the difference from revenue minus cost, it's right there. That's the profit amount. That's the estimated profit amount. Okay, big difference from the actuals. Now the actual is this column here. So during the duration of a job, the actuals are starting to come in. Your actual revenue, guess what? As you generate invoices, that number is going to start at 0, but then as you have more and more invoicing, that number is going to go up and up and up as you go. And same for these expense items are going to go up as well during the duration of the job. Now when the job's finished, then that's the total life-to-date cost of the job versus the job-to-date cost if the job is in process. By the way, our statistic windows, one of the things we pride ourselves in is drillability. I don't know if that's a word or not, but we like to be sure that if I want to know more information about a field, I can drill down and I can see the supporting details. You know, you never want your computer software to be a mystery. You really want to be able to see exactly how numbers are being calculated. So when I'm seeing total cost column here in detail, you know, showing Linda and Mark and Timothy and their hours and rates, all of that is then rolled up to this number right here. So this is my summary. This is my summary number, and if I drill on materials, guess what? I'm going to see the actual materials that have been used on the job. Okay, the part number is going to show there, and the cost and the total cost amounts are all in here as well. So you never, and this is available almost, this is almost available on the other side as well. So let me just, because I'm supposed to be doing a comparison here, so let's just take a look at their statistics. So I'm here on a production order, and if I go to statistics, you have something similar. It's not quite as detailed as you saw in the other one. So here is material cost, capacity cost, subcontract cost, and then a few miscellaneous overhead numbers to come up with total cost. But here's the expected cost and the actual cost and variance. So the variance is there from standard cost. This is the standard cost of the item. This is the actual cost. Now it looks like there's been no cost. So this is a good example. In other words, when a job first starts, there's no cost on it. You haven't posted any labor. You haven't posted any usage of materials. Maybe you haven't got any invoices from your subcontractors. So there's no actual cost on this job. But so the variance is all at 0. Now what we did here, because these could not be made drillable, and believe me, we certainly tried to make these drillable, we did provide a detailed report. I guess I should run this for you. Part of the webinar is to be sure that you get a sense for the products and what they do, and hopefully you will be interested in adding the functionality that I'm showing you today to your system as well. So, and certainly at the end, if you do have questions, we will have a Q&A session at the end. Oh, it came up on my other screen. Let me bring this over here for you. So here is the detailed report. Can you see that? Let me zoom in a little. Okay, so here is and this is on a production order. This is showing the item that I'm producing and the operations. This is my expected cost, and then the actual cost would come in here, and you would see the actual transactions. These are all the expected materials. So this is kind of, it's just basically an estimate kind of report right now, but this will expand as you have actual postings to Operation 10, 20, 30. In other words, employees spend time doing welding and they record their time doing welding, then it's going to show up here within the actual, let's call it, I guess, a cost bucket for that information. Okay, so now let's kind of clean up the screen a little bit here. I'm going to go out of this job. Okay, one last comment before, and I'm going to ask you guys a question here on the call, so be ready to type in some information on the keyboard. But I do want to make a point about job duration. what we find with the users of the software, and this is when if you call in and want to do some consulting with us about which system might be the most appropriate, one of the first questions I typically ask is, what is the duration of your jobs? So if your job, if you can get into the shop and you produce the item and it's done in a couple days, then my guess is that you're going to be standard costing that work. You're not really going to be tracking the actual postings of labor and materials and subcontract costs over the life of a longer duration job. So jobs typically are long in duration, and so with that duration, you can actually project a cost at completion. So a lot of our customers want to, during the life, so some of the jobs might be 2 or 3 months long, might be a year long, and they want to project what the cost will be at completion to compare that trend, that's kind of a cost trend, to what the estimated cost was. And that's really only available in the job system. Okay, so I'm going to pause here before we go on to the next page, and I want to ask a question for my wonderful audience. I appreciate your dialing in today. We've got 5 of you on the call, so we've got some people that respond. So grab your keyboard. Here's the question. Are you starting to see the difference? Are you starting to see the difference between a job cost manufacturing environment and a standard cost manufacturing environment? Am I doing a good job to make this clear? So just type in, yes, I understand, this is very helpful, whatever your comments you want to make. Let me know that you're kind of following along. Now, and the reason I have to kind of do this in silent mode, I kind of embarrassed, is the recording, I tend to get a lot of feedback. So Telka says yes, thank you very much for contributing, and Glenda says yes, this is very informative. Thank you, Glenda, appreciate that. And Sharon says yes, thank you, and thank you for being here as well and contributing. So we're getting some feedback. Excellent. Glad to have you all joining us for this session, and hopefully it will become even more crystal clear as we move forward. So let's go to page 3. And so now I'm going to spend a little more time on comparing operations. Okay, I want you to understand the difference in operations and how they work between the two systems, because it is even more apparent about some of the differences here. So I'm going to show both operations. In one system, it's called a router. In the other, it's called a task list, which is also kind of like a router. But in jobs, they call it a task list, and in manufacturing, it's called a router. But, I mean, it's the same concept. It's just different verbiage, and there's some translation involved and so forth. But I just want you to understand the two. So they both have this list of operations. I'm going to show that to you again. One of the things you will find with the NAV Manufacturing and the Manufacturing Plus, you do pick up some additional functionality. For example, wait time, move time, queue times. I don't have it on here, but there's send-ahead quantities as well. So you might, once a particular operation has produced, let's say, 50 of a batch of 1,000, you might want to start the next operation. So you can actually set up, and I don't have it here, I didn't type that one in, but it's called a send-ahead quantity. And it will make a big difference in how the schedule operates. And we'll talk about scheduling as well here today. So let me just show that little piece and to compare. I think I've shown some of it already, but just to be sure. So in the job system, on the left side, again, this is my job, so job list, and this is called task details. So if I look at the task details, remember, this is that list of operations or tasks that you're going to actually be comparing when you are, or actually, it's not only comparing, it's you're going to be posting time to these operations. So way to the right, you see it's got hours and dates. This is a big spreadsheet. Think of this as a big spreadsheet. And this is where you have the estimated labor costs, machine costs. All these columns are specific to each of these activities. So you can actually then eventually get to the total cost. You can see committed costs by jobs. We'll get into that when we get into procurement. And then the actual costs are starting to show up here as well. So you have actual labor hours. This is in hours. This is labor cost in dollars. Okay, so a lot of the information is viewable right on screen in this large spreadsheet, okay, associated with the operations of this job. In a job system, they don't have to necessarily be sequential. Okay, they can be more just buckets of cost. I'm interested in knowing, well, my cost compared, my usage compared to my scheduled cost, or my cutting cost. You know, it's more a bucket than sequential operations, although you can set it up sequentially as well. Let's compare this. I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to jump over to the manufacturing. And let's just pull up, I'm just going to pick one of these here. So I'm going to pull up a production order instead of a job. And guess what? It also has that same kind of list. I hope I have a sample here. Let that come up on your screen. There we go. So here is, now this is a shorter list. Okay, now I could have the same list. I could have this identical list. In fact, that might be a good idea for a future webinar, is I should probably set up an identical list in both systems so you can see that, like machining, assembly, welding, painting, packaging, you saw some, well, in fact, painting I had in the other one. Wasn't code 40, it was some other code number. But it has dates to it. It has the setup and run time, as did the other. Here's some of those extra things like wait time and move time. If that applies in your business, then you can have those values. You have a rate assigned to each of these. You have the setup time and run time, so you know the extended cost is shown here. So all of this, you know, should hopefully make sense to you as far as being able to track costs within a production order. So that would be down here in the actual cost as you post the labor and materials on that production order. So very similar, but the overall, there are some differences that, let's see if I want to mention anything here. So yeah, so the move time, the wait time, those things are some of the advanced. Typically in manufacturing, these are sequential steps versus, and this would be a versus cost codes that you would see in jobs. So because this is sequential, this may be more dealing with some scheduling issues, and I'll talk about scheduling here in a little bit, about what can be added for those of you that want a visual, kind of a visual drag and drop scheduling solution, and we'll talk about that as well. So I just wanted to mention that some of the differences there. There are some similarities. There are some differences as well. I'm going to move on. Number 4, issues that make the differences even bigger. So what's some of the other major differences? Well, the first one here that certainly when clients come to me and consult with me and ask about it, it's forecasting. So forecasting or parameters on the item card that they make to a certain stocking level, and when that stock level drops down, they make more, versus a make-to-order. So jobs tends to be more of a make-to-order environment, okay, and you use Job Manager for that kind of environment versus making to a forecast. So let me just, I'm going to park this for just a moment. I'll come back here. So let's go back to the Role Center here. I'm on the right side. And so here is my list of production orders. This is the main home, kind of the home area for the manufacturing environment. But I'm going to call your attention to this choice right here called Production Forecast. In fact, if you look over on the Role Center for jobs, okay, you have a job profitability matrix, but they're in WIP cockpit, but I don't see anything here to do with forecasting where I do have forecasting in manufacturing. So if you make to a forecast, it almost immediately would tell me that, let's just bring up a forecast here and I'll show it by month. I think I've got a sample. Okay, so not too much data, but here's an example. So on this item number 1,000, we're forecasting 500 in January, 800 in February, 400 sales in March. So this is the forecast, and then when you run the MRP and MPS processes within the manufacturing solution, it will pick these up and say, oh, there's a forecast, and we need to make a production order for these items. So the system will actually pick up this information as it sweeps through. In fact, it would be the entire list for all the items that you want to have that are, see if we have any others down here. I don't see any other forecasts, just a little sample here. So if you're doing forecasting, then it can pick that up and generate the production orders. When you run the planning worksheet, which is this option, when you run that, it will literally build for you production orders to fulfill the forecast. Again, not customer specific. It just says, okay, I want to put them, I'm going to put them in stock and have them available for sale. Okay? Not based on, it's based more on local knowledge than it is based on firm, let's say, sales orders in the system. Now the other thing too, I mentioned the item cards, and I'll do this fairly quickly. I'm going to go to our inventory list, and this is on the manufacturing side, and I just want you to see for an inventory item, I'm just going to pick on this bicycle. You probably don't make bicycles, but it's a fairly good example. So here is what we call the item card. I'll let that come up on your screen. There we go. So this is the item card. It's got the bicycle, it's got a description, it shows the shelf bin where you store it, the unit of measure. And notice too, right here on the card, on the right side, it's got supply and demand information like the quantity on hand, quantity on production orders. This is kind of in a glance, lets you see what's going on with that item. And then further down, if I scroll this down a little bit, some cost information. What I want to get to is the planning options right down here. So let me open this up. And this is where you can actually set various like reorder points and lead times and safety stock levels. Like this is at 150. And so if the inventory drops below 150, which in fact it looks like it does, then it would actually make some recommendations when you run the planning tool that you need to make more. So it uses these parameters, reorder points, reorder quantities, min, maxes, all that kind of stuff, to establish production, okay, more so than a sales order. Now, it can also work from a sales order. I don't mean to say that you can't put a sales order in and then it won't pick that up as well. You may not use the forecasting at all in the manufacturing. You just don't use forecasting, but you enter a sales order, and then when you run the planning worksheet, it sweeps through all those new sales orders and says, oh, we need to make some of these to fulfill those demands, and it creates the production orders. So, by the way, as I'm going through a lot of this, this is all material that's in our training classes. If you're not aware of what we do here at Cost Control Software, I think I should just take an extra second. And I'm going to pull up my website. I'll take just a minute, so humor me here. If you've not, this is probably where you found out about this webinar anyway. But we have a variety of add-on products, and one is for manufacturing, and it's called Manufacturing Plus. And you can get a lot more information just by going to this website. Yeah, and that's me up there. So if I open up the Manufacturing Plus, which is certified for NAV, there's a nice video here. You just click the image, and it will play a little video that kind of explains the functionality, some of the key benefits of the product, and so forth. Oh, and don't forget to request one of our product catalogs of all the products that we have and our training classes as well. So if you need to learn how to use nav manufacturing, guess what? We've got a full training class on DVD that will show you exactly how to use the entire system. Okay, so that's some of the services that we provide here at Cost Control Software. Okay, so I didn't mean to get too far off track here. So that's a little bit on the manufacturing. Here's the other thing, projects. For projects and job profitability, those types of things, you really should look into the job side. Rather than manufacturing, look to jobs. Because jobs allows you, remember when we had that list of jobs, that's customers, I want jobs, sorry. Okay, so here's my list of jobs. This allows me to group jobs together, makes a project. So if you still can track the cost of each individual job separately, and then the roll-up is the overall for the entire project. So for those of you that are wanting to break your job into smaller components of some sort, let's say you make a large machine, and that machine's got the electrical system, the mechanical system on there. It's got all these different components with their own unique bills of materials. You don't want to commingle that stuff together. You really want to have that set as different production orders, sub-production orders, sub-assemblies, whatever you want to call it, and track the cost of that work individually and then roll it up to the top level. That's what's happening with the job system. So very much a project-based with subtotals for estimating, quoting, resource assignments, all that kind of thing for the jobs. So what really matters, okay, to make this point make this over and over, is you've got to pick the right solution. Okay, don't go down the wrong path. It just kills me. Customers call in and say, "Oh, I'm using this, and it doesn't seem to be getting the information I want." And I start looking at their system. We do a little web meeting, and they start showing me how they're using the software, and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, you're using the wrong software within NAV." It happens all the time. So be sure that you pick the right solution. Okay, don't go down the wrong road. And so I'm going to encourage you to talk to me after the webinar. If you're not sure which one's right for you, just call me. We'll chat about it. Love to hear from you. Send me an email, something like that. I'm here to help you. Okay, in fact, in the Q&A box, if you have ever contacted me or Cost Control Software, would you just let me know that you know how to be in touch with me? Just type in, yes, I've talked to somebody at your office. You may have talked to Ben or to Julia. If not, just say, I know how to get in touch with you. Just type that in for me so I know you're kind of still awake out there. And we're doing okay on time, too. Some of you get concerned, oh, we've only got 15 minutes left and I haven't heard everything. Okay, so yes, okay, so Telka says they have talked to us in the past. Good. Glad you are familiar with this. Bob says, I know how to get in touch with you. Sharma says, I'll find it on your website. I'm sure, absolutely, it's on the website. It's called Contact Us. Glenda says, have your email contact details. So good for you, Glenda's got information on us. So everybody seems to know how to be in touch. So that's very important. You know, you can't do this business. This is very much a people business, and we like to have that conversation one-on-one. Emails are great, but really the best way to assist you is the telephone. So do feel free to call. But Craig says, I haven't called yet, but I will know how to, and I'll be able to get in touch. So yeah, and I'll put my contact information up here in just a moment. Okay, some of the things that are common, let me go move on ahead. So I'm still on page 3. This may go a little bit past the top of the hour because I've got some really fun things to show you here at the end. Not that this isn't fun, what we're doing. I'm just, there's some even more exciting, more fun things at the end. Okay, so what is common is, first of all, they both have instant access to the real-time data. So as you're posting your entries of labor, materials, subcontract invoices, purchase orders, all of that is updating in very much real time. Both of our software solutions have improved reports. Often we get customers calling saying, well, I just don't like the reports that come out of NAV. Well, They haven't looked at our reports. We spend hours and hours making sure the reports have the information that is needed in both these industries. So we feel we've got a very complete set of improved NAV reports using the NAV report writer, by the way. Both have history of completed jobs or completed production orders, so we're not going to delete jobs. You've got access to those old jobs. You can copy from old jobs. You can create new jobs from templates. A lot of things like that we've built into for efficiencies. Cost reporting, oh boy, very important. Job cost audit, that's in the system. Both systems have remote access for time entry. Many of you on the call may want to have your employees kind of enter their own time and have that go into an approval worksheet and then posted to the job. So we've worked very hard to provide this remote time entry capability so that the employees can enter their own time. I won't have time to show that here, but there is a nice video on that on our website, as you might expect. And if you're interested in kind of employees entering their own time, want to see how that works, Ben did a nice demo showing that. Both systems provide that the cost is correct with an excellent edit report, so they both are the same there. In fact, we find that many companies can manage their entire business with about 4 or 5 key reports, key costing reports, to keep track of what's going on in your business. So those things are all kind of in common. Now let me just kind of talk about what I look for in the business models. When people call me and say, Rick, which system should I use? Not sure, because it is a little confusing. Shouldn't be, but it unfortunately sometimes is. These are some of the key questions I'm going to ask. Okay, so in fact, before I go through these, I'm going to come back. I want to pause one more time. Before I kind of, well, I want to save, I had one more question that I want to ask here, and I think I will ask this here. I'm going to ask, grab your keyboard one more time. I'm going to make you type in. Sorry, it's got to be interactive today. What type of business are you in? So now that I've kind of explained these two business models, I want to be sure that you have clear identification of what business model you're in or your prospects are in. Okay? So what do you do, and which of the two that I see that I've shown here would make sense? So Sharon says vaccine manufacturer. Interesting. So a vaccine manufacturer, my guess that is more standard cost manufacturing. So if you make vaccines, looks like Craig's in the same business making vaccines, so that is the NAV manufacturing and manufacturing plus, okay? You're not going to cost out each vial of vaccine that you're producing. Sharon says, we have several processes including formulation, filling, viewing, labeling, and packaging. Oh, so perfect. You've got a nice list of your operations. That would be the processes that you would set up within the NAV manufacturing. If you would like for me to set up an example of that, give me a call and we'll do that. We'll do that later, or send me an email, and I'd be glad to schedule a demonstration for you. Bob says prospects in custom glass manufacturing. That's interesting. Glass manufacturing and custom carbide molds. So in that case, that's, again, think in terms of those are not long duration jobs. My guess is those are not long duration jobs, and so I'm going to say probably just off the cuff that that's more of a when you're making custom glass manufacturing or carbide molds. Well, maybe the mold manufacturing might take a long time. Depends how complex the mold or the die is that you're producing. If it might be, I did have a tool and die company several years ago that used Job System. I think that they still use it to track the cost of that. Okay, NAV Solutions Consulting in AUS. I'm not sure what AUS stands for. Okay, so anyway, here's what I look for. Oh, Australia. Oh, so you're in Australia. Glenna, you're up late tonight. Thank you very much for attending. And it is, appreciate you're here. And so if you're doing solution consulting in NAV, sounds like you might be a reseller. Maybe some of these products would be of interest to you as well. Here's what I look for. So number 6 on your study guide, the bottom of page 3, is, first of all, is revenue posted to the job. So if I'm a vaccine manufacturer, do we really track revenue against each production run? Are we looking for job profitability on that production run, or is it really to make the product, get it into inventory so we can ship and invoice it? Huh? Sharon says yes. Okay, well, excellent. So maybe in that, then, you know, again, I can't judge. All I can do is lay out some of the differences, and then hopefully you'll go, oh, that would be perfect for me. So that's what we're kind of doing here, and I appreciate the feedback. Job manager, again, longer duration jobs. So typically it's very labor intensive, and the time cards really tell it all. So look at your employees' time cards, how they fill that out. If they're putting down, I work today 2 hours on doing painting and 4 hours doing welding on this job number, you are definitely a job manager type of user. Okay? If the employees clock in the morning, go work in the shop, clock out at night and go home, and you use those time cards to do payroll, that tells me standard cost manufacturing. See the difference? So the difference is, on the time card, does the employee specify what the job is that he's working on? If they do, which would be very what I'd consider a labor-intensive kind of business, then jobs would be a better solution. Yash says, hi, Richard. I am a software developer, and my company has just joined Microsoft, and we will be working as consultants. What things do I need to consider? Well, all the things that I've covered today. Yash, thank you very much for joining in. And as a developer, that's kind of what we are as well. We're a developer of the software and have written the extra features that I've been showing you here during the webinar. Number 3, what I look for is service providers. They are great for job systems. People that do installing, people that make unique conveyor systems, research and development type companies, custom fabrication shops. These are all excellent opportunities for a costing kind of application. Really, job manager only would be your only solution there. I would not try to install a NAV Manufacturing or Manufacturing Plus in an R&D type company. It just would not be an appropriate solution. Would not give you the results that you want. Okay, number 4, one-off type of jobs. So if every job that you make is a little different, and I run into that constantly, then job manager is really the only solution that you should look at. So think in terms of your jobs. When you do a production order, if you're making it same thing over and over and over again, then it is a job manager kind of thing. Josh says, sorry, but I just joined a little late. How can I start this whole video from the start? Actually, what you will get, and this applies for everybody, we will be sending, Katie will send out to everyone that registered for this session a link to the replay. So you'll be able to watch it in its entirety. Okay, number 5, purchase orders to a job. For those of you doing purchase orders, and I'm going to jump back to the live software because I really want to show this. Purchase orders to a job are for materials or subcontractors. Job manager is excellent at this, where you buy for a job. NAV Manufacturing, you're really just buying for stock. You stock and then you pull inventory out of stock inventory. Let me show that. That's a really nice feature. I'll take an extra minute here and show that. Then we're going to talk about scheduling. So, okay, so I'm on the job side, and I showed you this statistic window earlier. So let me open that up on this job. So I'm on job number 1002-01, And here's, remember we talked about the estimates and we talked about the actuals. I did not mention this column right here, the PO outstanding amount. This links from the job. I'm sitting here on this job and I go, well, have somebody ordered the materials that I need for my job? Guess what? I can click and drill right through and I can see all of my open purchase order lines. How cool is that? So I know exactly what has been ordered, even though it hasn't come in. I do have the expected receipt date. I've got the list of the items and their quantities. I know who the vendor is. Here's the vendor. So I've got all that information one click away. I've had so many people that tell me constantly, people interrupt what I'm doing and say, have you ordered the materials? Have you ordered the materials for my job? Are those materials on order? And it's like, you know, go away. Because all you have to do is click here and you can see whether the materials are on order or not. Okay? It's eliminating disruption in the workplace as well as providing good information instantly right on screen. That's what this is all about. Same for subcontracts. So on the outside processing, if I click on that, I can see, let's see what we got here. This is heat treating. So I'm sending out some materials, looks like 10 at 120, oh, this might be 10 parts at $120 a piece, so it's $1,200. That's the PO to this particular vendor, $30,000, and that's a committed cost. It's not an actual cost. The actual costs are zero. So the actual costs are zero. It's only a committed cost. Once the parts come back and the invoice comes in, then it's going to move over here all automatically. Okay, we covered that in our training on the job system, how that automatically updates the actual cost, and then this number is going to go up a little bit, okay, as those parts come in and as the service work is completed by your subcontractors. Now, that is real important for job costers, not so as important for standard cost manufacturers. So there is no similar functionality on the manufacturing side. You can still issue subcontract purchase orders, but it doesn't show up as nicely as it does within the jobs. You really kind of have to just look at the PO list. Okay, and number 6, this is another major difference, is large quantity runs. So nav manufacturing, ideal if you're making 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 of a part, and they're typically short production cycles, then I would definitely be recommending the Manufacturing Plus add-on for nav manufacturing. So that is kind of a little summary there of those. And I think that, let's see if I wanted to ask another question. Okay, so I think you've got the idea here. I want to mention, just before we wrap this thing up here, there are some other add-ons that you need to be aware of that you might need in your business, and that's part of what we at Cost Control Software do, is we provide extensions to the Manufacturing Plus. So you already know about the Manufacturing Plus. Okay, that's what I've been showing today. But there's also manufacturing time entry with a clock in, clock out, so the employees can literally walk up to a form and literally just clock in or clock out on production orders, and that updates the manufacturing. There is quality control available. So if you would like to have a quality control system where you're actually doing testing of your finished good items or inbound raw materials, some people like to do a QC test on inbound raw materials before it goes into production, that granule is available as well. Engineering change management, there's a whole section on reporting, and visual drag and drop scheduling. Let me mention this one very quickly here. For those of you that want a scheduling solution, I guess I didn't show this earlier, I'm going to go into the manufacturing, and let's just, I'm going to pick one of these here. Kind of hate doing it on the fly. I don't know if this will work, but we'll find out. Okay, so I'm going to go into this production order, and I'm going to open up a lower window down here on this production order. I didn't show this earlier, so this is the first time you've seen this. Let this open up. Hopefully this will work for us. Come on. Okay, well, it's not perfect, but it's a good start. Okay, so now what you're seeing down here in this lower window is a Gantt view. Hopefully you're familiar with a Gantt view. A Gantt view lets me see the operations. Okay, this is my painting and packaging operations on this work order. So this is the particular work order, and this one hasn't actually been scheduled yet, so that's why it's kind of all in a row. Notice that it's totally embedded in your nav manufacturing view. So notice what you've got now with this layout of this screen, which I think is extremely important, is that how you design your cards or your view for your users is critical. So to us, and we spend hours discussing this in-house about the placement of each field and the sequence. You know, should we have order tracking first and then routing, or routing then order tracking? What's the best sequence to position these choices? So we spent a lot of time talking about that, having the easy access to the statistics of a production order, and now with the ability to have a full Gantt view schedule of this production order right on the card. This is fully embedded. I didn't go anywhere. This is not a, you know, it's just right here. So this is related to this one production order. However, if you wanted to see the schedule for all production orders, you come out here to the production scheduler view. Let me open this one up. Hopefully this will show on your screen. And now I'm seeing, yeah, so now you're seeing the schedule, okay, the dates across the top, okay, and the machines, the resources down the left side, and then these are the operations that are going to be occurring, and I can view this by week or by day or by month, however you want to look at your schedule, and you can see these different operations. You do have the ability as the scheduler to move, so if you need to move an operation, you can, or you can let the software optimize the schedule for you and calculate internally, and it does a great job at this, by the way, as far as the best sequence to run your jobs out on the shop floor. So a complete scheduling solution is available. A lot of people don't even know that this exists yet. It's fairly new, but it's wonderful, and if you are interested in that, please contact me. That's on manufacturing, and of course, I wouldn't be remiss, whoops, I went back too far. I would be remiss if I didn't show you the same kind of thing over on the job side. So for those of you that are job costers and you want to be able to see your job schedule and do, you know, basically resource planning kind of scheduling on for your jobs, let me get this up on your screen. Give it just a minute to refresh. Here comes the job. This is what's called the job Gantt view. Let me go to the resource Gantt view. There's several views that you can see on these tabs up here. And let me just switch this to a week view. See if I've got some activities. Well, they were there. Where'd they go? Oh. Go like this. There we go. Okay, so you get the idea here that these are the operations, shipping, adjustments, packaging, welding, whatever they might be. This one is also a very move oriented. So if this one's right now assigned to Paul, but if you want to put it up here with Sam or Stan and have him do that work, it's basically a drag and drop, and it now reassociates that work activity with this particular resource. So that's standby, not Stan. Okay, so we put this back here with Paul. So I can basically, I'm reorganizing, resequencing my work into specific assignments, all through a very much a visual drag and drop scheduling, all embedded right within jobs. So I guess my point here is that you have scheduling tools if you need them, okay? So this is really only if your business needs a visual drag and drop scheduling. We use a product called Planner One, and we do all the training services, the installation services on that right here at Cost Control, and we'd be more than happy to discuss that with you as well. There are some extensions to jobs as well, quality controls available, some wonderful billing things. MS Project. If you prefer to use MS Project, then the scheduling I showed you here, that is available to connect to that, and a lot of training services. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me see if I had any last questions. I think this is actually going to be your turn for questions. I will put my contact information up on the screen. I'm just a little bit over the top of the hour. I think I will stop the recorder. Thank you for those that have joined on the replay. And if you do have questions from the replay, here's my contact information. Send me an email or just pick up the phone. The best way to really reach me is that phone number right there. It rings right on my desk. Okay, let me